Before the pod gets started, go ahead and leave us a rating on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever else you listen to the pod. Thank you. Hello and welcome back to the Yellow Squared podcast. It's been a couple of weeks, but we're back for our final podcast of the 23-24 season. I'm very excited for this one, James. It is an absolute fan favourite, and I've got to say it's probably one of my favourite podcasts to record. Definitely a favourite from last season. But how are you doing?
Hey mate, yeah, I'm really good, thank you. It has been a couple of weeks. There's been a lot going on in the world of sport and in the world of Watford, which is kind of why we wanted to leave it a couple of weeks just to see what was happening before we got into this podcast. But yeah, mate, I'm really good. I'm looking forward to this one. This is always a nice one to do, isn't it? Have a little bit of fun, think about what we could have come the opening day next season, and then almost certainly be underwhelmed. How are you, though? You all right?
Yeah, I'm really good, yeah. And I think, well, if you haven't noticed from the title, it is, in fact, our keep, buy, and sell podcast for the 24-25 season. That's right, at the end of
Yes,
every year.
indeed.
We look forward to next season, have a look at the players that are confirmed to be leaving already, anyone else that we'd quite like to see through the doors, and then even have a look at some of the ins because we've already been linked to a few players. So I
Mm.
think we'll get started just with the players that have already been confirmed to be leaving. So I'll just run through the list very quickly. Hamer, Jamal Lewis, Jake Livermore, Emmanuel Dennis, Ashley Fletcher, and Mateus Martins. Um,
Mm.
those six names, James. Any name that sticks out to you as someone that you're sad about leaving?
I am. I'm waiting for the club to announce the statue for Ashley Fletcher. Um,
Yeah, he needs to be sat on the
what a
bench next to
servant
Graham
he was.
Taylor.
Yeah, yeah, he does. He spent a lot of time sat on the bench when he's not chained to people in Ibiza. It seems. Mate, no, I've started on a silly note there. I apologies. Uh, I'm desperately sad to see Livermore go. I
Mm,
loved him. I liked everything he was about. I can't say personally that I'm surprised, given he
no.
was only given a 1 year deal. And I think there's an argument to suggest that by the end of the season, his he was struggling to get around the pitch, wasn't he? Really,
Yeah,
it felt like it anyway. He might be fine, and I'm sure if he goes somewhere else this summer,
he'll be
he'll
fine.
do a wonderful job.
Yeah.
I also hope that the club are keeping him tapped up for a coaching role because he strikes me as someone
Yeah, I
who'd
was
be
going to say that actually. I wouldn't be surprised to see him back in a couple of years, especially with the recent appointments of coaches at Watford.
oh yeah, we could talk about that in a bit, can't we? Yeah,
Mm,
but no, yeah, Livermore, I'm sad to see go. Hamer, I think he can leave with his head held high,
yeah, yeah,
um, because look, clearly it was only ever signed to be a backup goalkeeper, but you know, la- this season he performed so well for us for such a long period of time. So
mm,
sad to see him leave. But obviously we'll get into the sort of the future thoughts for the squad going forward. But yeah, sad to see him leave. And then if I'm going to be honest, mate, the rest: Lewis, Martins, Dennis, and Fletcher. Um, yeah, I'm not going to lose sleep over any of them. The one that I will miss having around the club is Manuel Dennis. I feel
yeah,
like I'm in a minority there compared to a lot of Watford fans, but I liked how much he loved the club, and
yeah.
I think had we had a fully fit Dennis for the time we had him, I think he'd have been much more impactful than he was, unfortunately. But yeah,
Yeah,
so no, and not too bothered about the others. What about you, mate?
probably just around the same as you. It was great to see Hamer finally step up and almost topple Backman
Mm,
off that number one spot for a majority of the season. To be fair, until Cleverley came back in. Um,
mm.
Livermore's obviously a sad one. Immediately a cult hero at Watford. That
Oh,
double against QPR,
oh,
just
mate.
what a day to be Jake Livermore. Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
it's sad to see him go, but I wouldn't be surprised in a couple of years to see him back in on the coaching staff with Watford or
Well, let's hope so.
well, yeah, you can only hope so. But I think we're looking at that kind of recruitment based where we look at former players to come back because it's a nice little cycle, isn't it? The pathway. We always talk about the pathway of academy players into the first team. We've got to look at the pathway from retired first team players coming back to the academy in a coaching role because that's a great model to have. But yeah, we'll talk about the incomings of coaches in a little bit. Devastated to see Jamal Lewis leaving, but
I wonder how slowly he's building.
it's a long way back to Newcastle, isn't it? And he won't be going anywhere fast because he's never sprinted in his life. Yeah, Martin's disappointed for him, purely because he started the season so well. We thought, you know what, this is the player we could have had last season when he initially came on loan, started to come into his own. Obviously suffered that bereavement in his family and just wasn't the same again. No confidence by the end of the season, and it's looking like he's on his way to Flamengo or somewhere in Brazil. So best of luck to him in the future. Dennis is a sad one. Obviously, he absolutely loves Watford. I just don't think they could work out a wages or a contract for him. It's just too expensive for us at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
As a mid-table championship club, and obviously Ashley Fletcher. I think he played for Watford 3 times. So definitely not going to be losing any sleep over him.
No, weirdly, I think he has a very good goals to games ratio for Watford. Bizarrely, I think he scored most of his goals in the cup.
Yeah, those 2 goals against or a goal against Crystal Palace in the EFL Cup.
Is he one of the worst Watford signings under the pot size?
For £25,000 a week, he must be up there with Manai. I'm trying to think of some other absolute stinkers we've had in the past few years. Araujo, he's got to be up there.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think.
I genuinely, I can't find. I think you're right, mate. For the price, for when we signed him going into the Premier League.
Yeah.
The Premier League. We signed Ashley Fletcher.
Good bit of business that.
That's so bad. Anyway, best of luck to him. Hope he goes and finds a club.
It will be a tough ask. Okay, then we'll get into some positions.
It leaves quite light, doesn't it?
It does actually. I'm looking at the little spreadsheet that we've concocted for this video, and there isn't a right lot of players left. After we've
and a few guesses as well.
Yeah. Okay then. We'll start with goalkeeper. The 2 we're left with is Bachmann and Miles Roberts. I'm going to put this one out there. Personally, I'm sticking with my viewpoint from last season. Bachmann probably should go. We'll talk about who we're linked with later on in the video, but I think his time at Watford is done. He was, like I said, toppled by Hamer for majority of the season, and I think he could do with a fresh start somewhere else. And as for Roberts, I think he's got 1 year on his contract left. Wouldn't be surprised if he's loaned out somewhere, or he's just kept as a third choice or a bench option, depending on who we bring in the window. So I'll pass it over to you, James. Any changes on that?
Yeah, a couple. But so Bachmann's a really interesting one for me. I agree with you that I think that his relationship with the fans is so broken that I just don't think that even if he kept a clean sheet every game he played now, I'm just not sure that he would ever fully get the support. And I know that it's a vocal minority, right? But yeah, so I kind of feel like with Bachmann, I would be looking to move him on for his own good, mostly because I believe that he is a good goalkeeper. I just think that he's too tarnished at Watford, and the confidence that he has from the fans and I don't know whether or not it translates to the playing staff and the coaches. I'm not sure, but obviously he got dropped quite noticeably last season. Um, However, big caveat on this though, mate, is what is Watford's expectations realistically?
Mm.
Are we going to suddenly change the style of football? Are we deciding that we're going to be getting promoted back to the Premier League? I'm not sure. So that leaves me, and we'll come on to this with how we want to build the squad later on, clearly. But for me, I'm going to say I'd like to keep Backman because he is a good Championship goalkeeper, excellent shot stopper, as we know that Tom Cleverley said. I think when you tell him to keep it simple and just play the ball long, don't try and play out from the back. I think I think as a mid-table, mid to top half table Championship side, I think Backman fits into the team. And let's not forget, he did win promotion to the Premier League with Watford in 21-22, and he played quite a large portion of that season as well.
Mm.
So, so with the context that I think that Watford are in, I am wanting to keep hold of Backman, and I'll
Okay.
be looking to get another goalkeeper in. Not giving too much away. Uh, and also Miles Roberts, yeah, bang on, mate. I don't have too much more to say on him. I think keep him at the club, give him some games in the cup maybe, or
Mm.
move him on
Yeah.
because he's been around the first team squad for so long and has never played. They're clearly, unfortunately for him, I just don't think the club fancies him. So
No. Which is a shame, but they're constantly bringing in goalkeepers for backup and
yeah,
whatnot. So
yeah,
he always seems to just be at the bottom of the pile, which is a shame for him. But we've seen it with other people. It's
yeah.
that guy's name from a couple of years ago, Vincent Angelini or something.
Vincent Angelini went to Brentford, didn't he?
He was moved on, yeah. So
I,
it doesn't
yeah.
surprise me that he hasn't really got a lot of game time, and I think he'll just be moved on eventually, probably at the end of his contract,
Yeah,
unless
I can't
somebody.
see anybody paying money for
No,
him.
no. After not seeing anything from him
Yeah.
in a real game, unless they string up a particularly good training montage of him, then potentially. All right, we'll move it on to left back, and that's because there is one player here, and I'm
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
immediately say it's a sell. You can probably
Oh,
guess
really?
James Morris. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, it's time to go. Um,
It's time to go.
yeah, that was playing in my head as I said that, but unfortunately, he is not good enough. He is not good enough. I think the frailties he has were isolated dramatically on the last day of the season. He's just not quick enough, and
Yeah.
I don't think he's good enough to be in the championship, even at mid-table. Um, I like the guy, but unfortunately, that's not really enough to cut the mustard,
Mm.
especially with Lewis leaving. Um, yeah, it's got to be a sell, and I think it's immediately noticeable that we need to bring in a left back or a left wing back um, for next season. So, are you agreeing with that, or are you giving James Morris another chance?
So I'm going to agree with you. Actually, I think it's time to move James Morris on. However, I don't think he will get moved on
No, no.
because we can't afford. We've only got one left back. And I don't think we can afford to move him on because I just don't really believe we have the funds personally to go and buy two left backs. I'm gonna I'm gonna agree with you on your moving him on point because I just don't believe, based on the system that was reported through Andrew French and Tom Cleverley, if they want to play wing backs next season in two systems, unfortunately for James Morris, he hasn't got the ability, in my opinion, to do that position because that left wing back has to be able to get forward
Yeah, and
and
get back as well.
be potent. James Morris's defensive abilities is good. Like I think he's as a defensive
He's
left back
solid, yeah.
in the Championship, he does his job and he does his job really well. And there's been so many times where I've left Watford and I've gone, do you know what? Morris did really well today. Really pleased for him.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I think if we're going to be brutal about this keep buy sell, I'm with you, mate. Morriston, move on, please.
Yes. The next position, centre back, James. I think this is the easiest position of the whole podcast.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, let's go.
immediately
Yeah,
going to say keep every single one of them. Unless we
yeah,
receive a good amount of money for either Hoot or Porteous, I wouldn't move on any of them. I think
yeah,
they're all worth keeping.
yeah,
Pollock and Siralta, especially if we're playing three centre backs, which is going to
yeah,
be very likely next season with the two formations that have been earmarked. I
yeah,
think all four of them are really great options, really solid for the championship. And to be honest, since Christmas last year, we've kind of stopped conceding so many goals. I think it was evident at points before we had Porteous and Hoot that we really struggled. Um,
yeah.
and just to have four really solid centre backs, I think we look much more compact. And I'm gonna stick my neck out and say Hoot's top five championship centre backs, possibly top three. So I wouldn't want to move him on unless somebody paid a really solid amount of money for him, which I don't see it because he's what 30 something, 31, something like that.
Yeah,
So it's not worth it. But yeah,
no,
immediately keep all of those.
yeah. Agreed, mate. I won't say too much more on top of that because I think you bang on. The concern, the only concerns for me is like you say, who well, I think we paid him quite a bit, and he's only got 1 year left on his deal. So
Mm,
if he turns around and says, "Well, not sure, fellas, might want to move on," that might be the time the club goes, "Okay, well, we'll get some money for you."
yeah.
But he's club captain, so he might decide, "Well, yeah, I'm happy here.
Mm,
Fans like me, the players like me.
yeah.
Bang on." My
100%.
my concern is if Porto goes and has a unbelievable Euros. Um, that could put his value up and
Yeah.
put interest in him up. But ifs and buts, isn't it really? So yeah, mate. Centre backs, all four of those boys, I think deserve to stay.
Mm. All right then. Moving on to right back. Interestingly enough, I'm just gonna put this out there. Ngakia been given a new 3-year contract at the club,
Yeah,
essentially to lie on the medical table for some reason. Um, and obviously Andrews, and then we've included Ferreira, who has been pushed out on loan to Udinese for the season, and obviously Albert
yeah,
Eames featured at the end of the season, so we've just added him on there. This is an interesting position because, as far as I'm concerned, other than Ferreira, I think we haven't seen enough of Eames, but I'm gonna say we'll keep him.
yeah,
Just possibly loan him out for the season somewhere. Look to get him look to get him some minutes in first team, potentially lower down in the football league, exactly like we've seen with Shackford this season, and boy did that turn out to be a great bit of business for Watford. Um,
yeah,
Andrews keep 100% right wing back. He can bomb forward. Um, as
yeah,
I said, we've said this summer is going to be very important for him. Just working on a few little bits, and I think Tom Cleverley is the right manager to get the best out of him.
yeah,
So keep Andrews. We're obviously keeping Ngakia. If he can remain fit for a season and and get some real good minutes in there, I think he could potentially be a very solid either backup or maybe even first choice.
yeah,
Ferreira is futile, absolutely pointless at Watford. I'm not really
yeah.
sure why we didn't just sell him to Udinese or sell him somewhere. But no, he is a sell for me. He's not even worth having on the books as a loanee.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm convinced now that Ferreira's not going to play for Watford again. So yeah, sell him.
He's not interested,
Eames,
is he?
no, he didn't fancy it at all. I was really disappointed with that. I would have thought that if you wanted to have a run at getting into the Premier League to nail down first choice right back, which personally I think he probably would have been,
Yeah.
because I thought he was decent. He's gone to Udinese, played at Udinese, but yeah, Ferreira's gone. Eames, have him around the squad, maybe send him out on loan. And yeah, I think your point on Andrews and Ngaki is perfectly fine, mate. I agree with that. I think you pick those based on form. For me, I don't think there's too much between them personally.
No.
If especially if you want to play him in a right wing back role, bit more attacking. Uh, I think depending on who is performing at any one time, I think you pick them. So I'm happy with both of them. The big dilemma that you've got if you're Watford is Ngakia. If he breaks down in September for another 6 months, then you're screwed, aren't you? Because you're going back to Delabashiru at right wing back,
Yeah.
unless you think Eames can come and fill in that position. So it is a bit of a risk. The club clearly like him, and I think the staff like Ngakia. But I've made my feelings clear on him in the past.
Yeah.
I personally don't think you can rely on him. Sadly, a
No.
little, you know.
No.
So yeah. I agree with that, mate. Andrews and Ngakia in, Eames in, Ferreira out.
Perfect. All right then, we'll move into more of the interesting positions for next season. We'll start with central midfield. Two midfielders here is a definite keep in my opinion. Just with all the talks of people moving on, we'll start with Kone and Deli Bashiru. I would absolutely keep both of them. Kone's got an unbelievably high ceiling, and the more minutes we can give him, the higher his value will go, especially this season. Last season he really came into his own. I think he can kick on this season and double his transfer value come the end of come the keep buy sell of 25-26. As for Deli Bashiru, a really solid option. He's really come into his own this season as well. Great to see him playing so well for Watford after spending so long sort of on the sidelines and out on loan. Another player who I would absolutely keep. And then we're moving into Loser and Kmbe. Loser obviously coming back from loan with relegated Lorient in France. I believe that Cleverly is a manager who can get the best out of Imran Loser and turn him into one of the best midfielders in the Championship. And I'm going to stick with that. And people are going to clip this come the end of probably the end of the window when he's been moved on for next to nothing. But I'm going to stick my neck out and say Tom Cleverley is the manager who can turn him into the best loser we've seen. And just finally, Kmbe, I would love to keep him because I absolutely love Kmbe.
Yeah.
However, he has been linked with a move away from Vicarage Road onto Ipswich in the Premier League. He's not going to turn that down if it goes through. Because why would he? Why would he stay at mid-table Watford when he could go and play in the Premier League again? When he didn't really get a chance with Watford. But I would be sad to see him go. So it will probably be 4 keeps as far as I'm concerned. But I think potentially the most logical outcome will be we'll keep Kone and Deli Bashiru, and Kmbe and Loser might move on.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's going to be a hell of a lot of churn in centre mid over the summer. I would love to keep Kayembe, but I think it would just be unfair. Especially, I think he would do so well in a team that is coached the way that Ipswich is coached. A nice settled side, good squad, and plays good football. I think he would do really well there.
Absolutely.
So I wouldn't want to begrudge him that move because he's earned it, and that is a little bit of, that's the model, right? That's what you want to do as a club is you have players, they perform well, you sell them for a profit, and then you move on.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so I think Kone and Delabashiru can be really built around. I think they might be a little bit lightweight, so you might need to have someone else in there potentially. And that's where my concerns over Loser comes out. If I can be honest, not sure whether or not if you do want to have just 2 in the midfield as cleverly suggested with his system. If you can carry loser, not sure, but we'll have to wait and see. So yeah, I think Kone and Delabashiru to stay, please, and like you say, the other three may move on. If we can keep Kayembe, then brilliant.
Okay then. That's a central midfield is such an interesting talking
You could
point
have a
because
pod on its own, couldn't you? Really?
it could because it's such a driving force of a team. You know, we were playing so well when that midfield three of Kayembe, Kone, and Livermore were firing on all cylinders come November and December this last year. And yeah, it was noticeable when the legs started to go around Christmas that we started to fall apart a little bit, um, which is why I'd be looking to maybe bring in a bit more steel in the midfield, potentially. But we'll get on to some incomings come the end of the pod.
Mm.
We'll move on then to the winger roles.
Mm.
I'm gonna start this by saying, looking at the two formations that Cleverley is looking to play, I'm not
Yeah,
sure how much use having a lot of wingers is going to be, unless they are very
yeah,
um, versatile in playing either up front or in an attacking role or potentially even wing back.
potentially.
Um,
Yeah, agreed.
so we'll start with players who can play out on the right wing,
Yeah.
looking at Ince, Aspria, and Jack Greaves and Jose Hurtado. Um,
Oh yeah.
Ince, I'm gonna say sell. I don't think he's versatile enough to play anywhere in those positions, and he did not have a good season. Very underwhelming as far as an experienced winger is concerned. Aspria is such a difficult one. Um, he the club obviously don't want to move him on. That's up to them, I suppose. I don't think that's particularly a sensible thing to do. I would
No.
cash in on him now, um, given I don't think he had the greatest of seasons last year. Obviously, he was good, but I think there's no point in keeping him. If we need the money, there is no point in keeping him, and we can get £15 million from now, with
Yeah.
some sell-ons, and he can go to Lisbon or he can go to an Everton in the Premier League, and you know we're £15 million richer, and we've still got some quality in the side. Um, you know, there's some names coming back from loans and people coming in who he signed through the season that I think potentially could go on to have great seasons in those positions. And I don't see the sense in keeping Aspria when I wouldn't say he's outgrown Watford, but I think it's worthwhile just cashing in on him now, especially if we need the money for him. And then as far as
Yeah.
Greaves and Hurtado are concerned, they haven't really played a lot of football. Hurtado obviously went out on loan, looked really good for Gillingham actually. They absolutely loved him. Then he
Yeah.
did he tear his
He did.
ACL? Was it his
Yeah, he's
ACL?
done something to. I don't know if it's his ACL, but it was quite a serious knee injury, wasn't it? Which needed
Yeah.
surgery. So, um, yeah. Sorry, my research on Hurtado has let you down on this one. I'm afraid, mate. Yeah, I'm not sure how long he's out for, but I hope it's not. I hope it's not too serious for him.
No, but again, two players I'd be looking at learning out. Greaves, I don't think from what I've seen is ready for the championship just yet. Similarly to
No.
what we've seen in the past few seasons with the likes of Shaq Ford, and other players, even like Deli Bashiru. They just aren't ready at a younger age. So
Yeah.
loans are exactly worthwhile to build up that confidence. And I just wonder if these young players suffer from a little bit of imposter syndrome. You know, when they obviously they come through the
Yeah.
academy, they grow up and they watch Watford. Particularly for Greaves, who is it his great grandfather or grandfather that played for Watford? Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
So, oh, was
there's
it
going to
Greaves?
be a
Yeah, it was Greaves, wasn't it?
there is going to be an element of expected, him to perform for Watford. And so I feel like some of these younger players maybe worry or wonder if they're good enough to be there, if they're there on merit, or they're there just to say, "Oh, look at how many academy players we've got in the
But
first team squad."
that's a good time though, just to really quickly segue onto like obviously Lloyd Doyley, Dan Gosling,
Mm.
um, um, Matt Bevans, uh, you know, Cleverly, uh, uh, Jimmy Gilligan, Richard Johnson. I really like this small step in the right direction where the Watford Academy is full of former Watford first team players,
Mm.
and who can give you that expectation, who can explain what it's like, but also to calm people down, and just it feels like that's a really nice pathway that's developing. That how amazing would it be eventually that let's say Jack Greaves comes to the academy, has a full career at Watford, retires, coaches, and then comes all the way through at the top. That's such a great story to
Yeah,
have. And I love that. I love the concept that Watford is now could potentially start to become this place where you know you come for a lifetime, not just to
yeah.
play as a player.
You literally go all the
And
way through.
all the way through. I mean, and you can leave, you can go and play for other bigger, better clubs, go abroad, have all this experience, but you come back to Watford at the end. I think that'd be a really nice. That's a really nice thing. So yeah, I get you, mate. I get you that it could become a bit of a big thing for some of these young players, but hopefully with the right coaching, with people, mentoring you, with a little bit of time, these guys can come good. I
Mm.
think you're right. I haven't seen too much, unfortunately, from Jack Greaves in these brief appearances that has made me think, oh yeah, give him a bit more time.
Yeah,
I think he needs a good preseason, play some preseason first team fixtures, get minutes in, and then we look to move him, like you say, like we've done with Shaq Ford. We get him down the leagues so he can learn to play men's football in the football league, and then come back and try and turn it on for Watford. And then Hurtado, personally, I think he's just a massive unknown.
yeah,
we don't
yeah.
know. We don't know. And then if I can just quickly touch on Aspria, um, uh, my personal feeling, I think, is aligned with yours. I would be selling him now because I think we can get the most amount of money for him. And of all the players that we're going to sell, he's the one who's most likely to explode and go and then sign for a top European club. So a little bit like what we had with Richarlison, with Estupinian, some of these other players we've had, Dodi Lucabayo, but where we signed these players and then we've had basically two sets of transfer fees coming down the line.
Yeah.
I think for me it makes more sense, as tough as it is. I would be selling Aspria, so you lose one person for 10, 15 million pounds plus add-ons in the future, rather than selling on 4 or 5 players for 3 or 4 million a pop,
Mm.
because it just is basic maths in the sense of we've got to go then sign 3 or 4 players for no money, whereas we may have lost one player, but we could bring 3 or 4 in for the delta of Aspria. So
Exactly. Yeah.
I personally, as much as I don't want to lose our best players, I think for the good of the club and the building of a squad, I would be looking to move Aspria on. And I know the board has said he's not for sale. I think there's a part of me that wonders whether or not that's just the board telling people you're going to have to make a good offer
Yeah.
to ramp his price up a little bit, maybe. But yeah. Oh, and move on. Ince can go.
Yeah.
Didn't work, did it? But
No.
for 50k, for
Yeah.
50k,
It wasn't terrible,
he
was it?
scored a few goals. He scored a few goals, got a couple of assists. I don't think it's a terrible bit of business. If
No.
it's why
Okay then.
isn't move on?
Left wing. There's some better options, I would say, who are far more versatile. Ken Sema, uh, love the guy. He can
Keep
play
him.
left wing back. He is the option, isn't he, for left wing back as well
I think so.
as going forward. Great player,
Yeah,
really great end product. I can see him working well with the likes of Rajovic and whoever's up front for Watford next season, just
yeah,
to whip him balls into the box. Very dynamic, very straightforward and attacking, I would love to see him
No
stay,
brainer, really.
and I don't think he's going to move on anywhere. Chatvertadze, he is a very interesting one, and I'll tell you why. I think he has the potential to be absolutely fantastic for Watford next season.
Mm.
Either that, or he goes to the Euros, has a great tournament,
Mhm.
and we sell him on for a solid fee. I think he can play in the central
Yeah,
mid. He can play in the attacking midfielder position
yeah,
next season.
yeah,
He's got
yeah,
quality, needs more end product, but I think he's going to be a player that all of a sudden these lower to mid Premier League teams are looking at and going, "Oh, you know what? He's got some quality." But
yeah,
it's the Euros. You know, there's going to be teams from all over Europe and potentially the rest of the world watching this tournament and going, "Where can I
yeah,
find young players
yeah,
who I see potential in?" And I think he's one of them.
yeah,
I would keep him, but I think he could be sold for a decent fee this summer if and it would be another bit of a bit of decent business as far as Watford are concerned in terms of Reece Healey that we flipped for a decent fee, and we spent what £2 million on Chatvertadze, something like that
something
in
like that.
January.
Yeah, yeah,
I think we could get more than that if he has a great tournament. Um, but yeah,
yeah,
he's a keep for me. And then
yeah,
two more names coming back from loan. Um,
yeah,
Kwadwo Bar, I'm a huge
yeah,
fan of the guy. I think he's got bags of potential. They really liked him on loan at Burton. He then got injured and had to be
yeah.
recalled by Watford, which is a shame for him. Um, I'm just gonna say we'll loan him out again, unless a club wants to buy him. Um,
Yeah.
but like we've been saying, there's just not really a position um, for out and out wingers. They have to be versatile to play in this system. Um, so I would be looking at loaning him.
Yeah.
And then we have Kalu. Uh,
Yeah.
just just sell him at this point. He's gone out on loan. I don't think he's done anything on loan.
I'm
Um,
just looking right now.
it's it's such a weird one. He came in. He looked like he wanted to play in the Premier League. Definitely had some good seasons at Bordeaux before he moved to Watford. Promising, but ultimately just another disappointing transfer under the Pozzos, especially in the Premier League. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, I'm looking at him and thinking there's not really a position for you to play. He doesn't scream that he's developed out on loan and he's going to be this special player for Watford in the Championship. He's not
No.
versatile. He only really plays left wing, and so yeah, unfortunately for me, I think he is going to have to be a sell.
Yeah, mate. And just to back you up there, so playing in Turkey, I think it's Turkey. I just need to double check. No, sorry, Lausanne Sport, which is Switzerland, I think. Um, he's 3 goals in 21 appearances with 2 assists. So 13% of the time he's on the pitch. Sorry, 13% of goal participations when he plays in the sort of the Austrian and sorry the Swiss Premier League.
Yeah,
So not great.
not
I think
great at all.
unfortunately for him, his time is done.
It'd be interesting to see if we can get any sort of money for him, or they'll just let him go on a free. He hasn't been announced in that sort of these are the players that
No,
we're leaving.
and
Um,
his deal is up. Yeah,
so it'll be interesting to see if he's just let go on the sly, or you know they con someone into paying some money for him. But yeah, as far as I'm concerned, he is a sale for next season. And you know what? I'm looking at the spreadsheet that we've sort of been highlighting as the podcast is going on. Um, there's literally no players left.
not a lot.
There's
Not a
really
lot.
not a lot of players here who can play next season,
Busy
unless we
summer.
bring in some names and quite a few of them. Um, yeah, this thin squad has really come back to bite us, even though Ishmael's not here. All right then. Last position, and thankfully there are quite a few names here. Um, Rajovic and Bio.
Yeah.
The illustrious partnership. Um, I love Bio. I think he does so much hard work for Watford. I don't think he's good enough. Um, so for me, he would be a sell. Rajovic, I think he has more to give. I think he's got natural ability to finish the ball when it comes into the box. Cleverly, clearly likes him. He does a lot of hard work on the training pitch, after hours, that kind of thing. I think it's worthwhile keeping him for this season. Have a good pre-season. And in a formation where there's potentially two up top, he might be able to work well with a partner. So he will be a keep for me. And then we're looking at three more names. Shaq Ford, coming back from winning Young Player of the Season at Leyton Orient, having a great
Yeah.
season. Fantastic. He keep him around the first team now. He can make appearances. He could be, the player that plays up top for Watford this season. We don't know how he'll react to the Championship. I think he's worthwhile using in the pre-season friendlies just to see where he's at, but definitely worthwhile keeping. And then the last two, Adeyemo sort of burst onto the scene, didn't he, last season?
Yeah.
Has been injured all season. I'm going to say we loan him again this season. Potentially a 6-month loan, something like that, into non-league or potentially lower down into the football league somewhere. I think he actually went on loan to Wealdstone potentially
Wilson, yeah, to get some
at the end of
minutes
the
back, didn't
season.
he? Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if he's loaned into the National League or something like that for the season, or for at least half a season. Get him some more minutes before giving him a go at the first team again. I just think it's impossible for him to make a huge jump to the Championship level again, having missed literally an entire year of football. And then the final name, Mamadou Doumbia, the 17-year-old signed during the season. He came down to some training during the Easter break, when the international break was. He's a very exciting player for Watford. I think we keep him around the club. We'll see what he's like during pre-season, I'm sure. There's always time to move him on for an emergency loan, a quick loan, anywhere, literally anywhere. But I'm very excited to see what he's like. But definitely a keep for me. So there, we're left with three players that I would keep around the first team from the striking position.
Yeah, nice.
Okay then, should we go through the sort of squad we'd have, the starting 11 in one of the formations picked by Cleverly?
I think so. And I think what we should say is we'll build this sort of squad based off what we've just discussed, really. So this is effectively who is available at the moment, and then maybe we can identify some of the key gaps that we think needs focusing on. Them. Does that sound good to you, mate? Yeah.
I'll let you take this one away. I feel like I've been doing a lot of talking today.
It's great. It's great. So I think based on what we've spoken about, and I think what we'll do is we'll focus on the 3-4-1-2 that I think Cleverly is earmarked as his primary formation. So in goal at the moment, Dan Bachman, 3 centre backs of Porteous, Pollock, and Hoot. I've gone for. Discussions over CRL, so we can talk about that in a bit. Right wing back Andrews, left wing back Ken Sema. 2 centre mids of Tom Delbashiru and Ismail Kone, and an attacking midfielder of Yasser Asprilla with a strike force of Militarevic and Vakun Bio, based on what we've kind of got available to us.
Interesting. I like it. I think pragmatically for next season, I would, interchange Asprilla out for Chakvetadze. I think it's notable that he probably will leave. I think it's right to sell him. However, if the club do think this season's worth potentially trying to sneak in at sixth in the playoffs, then they might decide to keep hold of him. As far as Bayo goes, I think his time at Watford is up. As I've said, I put him on my personal sell list. But I think we bring in another striker to play alongside Rajovic, or we use Ford or Dumbia. But we don't know yet because obviously pre-season is a few weeks away. We won't be playing any games for the meantime. But other than that, I love it. Yeah, I just think the left wing back, we know Sema, his legs can be made of glass at times. So that will be a position we must strengthen. There is no, if we don't sign anyone else, we must sign a left wing back, or a left back at least.
Absolutely.
To either start there or at least cover Sema for the inevitability that he gets injured, because I don't think there are really any. I really don't think there are any left backs in the academy that can make this step up as well as Andrews has done, and I don't think either him or Ngakia can filter across onto that left side.
No, I completely agree with you there, mate. And so the way I look at that lineup, as we've laid it out there, I think there's four positions for me that really stand out. And I know we asked on our socials earlier in the week what people thought, and I think it actually it aligns with what we were just talking about. Actually, I look at that and I think striker up front, not good enough. I agree with you. So Rajovic and Bayo, 16 goals between them last season, and I know they were playing as like individuals, but if you've got a strike force, two strikers on the pitch over a 46-game season, you have to be hitting minimum 20 goals.
Yeah, between them,
as a pair.
I would say as a pair. For a side trying to get into the playoffs or at least finish top half, a striker on their own needs to be scoring 16 goals, not between the two of them. I just don't think they're good enough or consistent enough to be working in a partnership.
So I agree. I think we need a striker to work alongside Bayo or Rajovic. Personally, I would be interchanging Bayo and Rajovic, and then I would have a pacier striker. So basically, we want to go and sign a Vidra, don't we? A 14-15 Mate Vidra to work alongside Rajovic, because I actually think that could work quite nicely.
I mean, we don't know what Dumbia is like. He could be that pacey striker.
He could be that guy, couldn't he? Yeah. He could be.
Which would be a revelation for us. I mean, we don't even know how Ford can work. But I would say we should be signing another striker. I agree.
I'd be after an assassin, a pacey assassin striker.
I mean,
and then I also go on.
If Middlesbrough can sort of spawn in these strikers every year that can score 20 goals a season, I don't see why we can't find someone who can do the business for us up top alongside Rajovic.
Yeah, if you're going to stick with the two, if you want to go with this system, then there are players that you can just focus primarily on. Can they finish and are they quick? Because you can build around that. If you have a Asprilla or Chakvetadze in that number 10 role behind them, with a Ken Sema who's able to cross a ball, I think that could work really nicely.
Yeah.
Striker is key for me.
And we know how much Chakvetadze and Asprilla don't like to shoot on their own. They love to play everyone else in. So if we can get a pacey striker who can stay on side, then huge. We'll be in the money.
I'll come back to two other points at the end. So I know that the Watford family who are on our socials really focus on striker, and I think they were bang on with that. I also look at that centre midfield, where we've got Delabasha and Kono. I think it just needs beefing up. If you're going to just have two in that midfield, I worry slightly. So I think maybe you want to get a Jake Livermore Mark II. And by that, I mean a bit of experience, but somebody who can be a little bit of an anchor point, a
Yeah.
bit more physical, who can then lay the ball off to a Delabashiru, a Kone, and a Spria, who can then move the ball around nice and quickly. I just worry that a Delabashiru and Kone midfield could get overrun in games, and so I think there needs to be something in that centre midfield position. Um, if you disagree with that, shout, mate.
No, no, I do agree. I think they both have a tendency to get forward, but at the same time, we've seen Kone disappear in games, and
Yeah,
it's difficult for Deo Bashir to be in that midfield on his own, particularly when a lot of teams play a three in midfield.
yeah, agreed. And then I look at the left back position. I like Sema at left wing back.
Mm,
I think it's a role that's made for him, but there's nobody else. So we need to go and sign another left wing back. And if we can get somebody to either come in and be a first choice left wing back,
yeah,
then great. But if we can get somebody who could support Ken in that role, that'd be awesome. And then last one for me before I close out. Sorry, we need another goalkeeper because I don't think Roberts can support Backman as we've discussed.
yeah,
And then I think we probably need to go and get another centre back. If we're going to play a back three, you can't just have four first team centre backs available to you. You have to have five, maybe even six.
mm.
So those are the things that stood out to me. I would be targeting mate a left back and a striker and a centre midfielder as priorities.
Yeah. And just to quickly have a look at some players that we've already been linked with, I think they actually fit into the positions that we've sort of said need to be filled come the start of the season.
Yeah.
Obviously, goalkeeper Velo, this sort of mysterious goalkeeper who's valued at around 10 million euros or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
He's only 25 or something like that. He would be a great signing. I don't think we're going to spend £10 million on him. I think his release clause is much lower than that. But we need a
It was the other way
goalkeeper,
around, wasn't it?
so
Yeah.
just pay it. I think we may as well just pay a million, 2 million on him to bring in a first choice goalkeeper, or at least have some quality that can back up
Yeah.
Daniel Backman.
Yeah.
And then this interesting conversation about central midfield, bringing in some steel. We've already been linked with Oliver Norwood and Luke Berry, both in their
Yeah.
30s, central midfielders.
Yeah.
Great picks. I think Norwood
yeah. I love that.
is a solid midfielder for the Championship. Can't cut it in the Premier League anymore. But I think they'd both be worthwhile bringing in. I think you may
Yeah.
as well have some experience in midfield that Livermore left with, that can help these guys out, help Kona, help Deli Bashir to not only grow as players, but also be able to hold down the midfield in the event that some of those players go missing in games. And they're great options to bring on off the bench. Norwood loves a goal
Yeah.
as well, and as well as Luke Berry, to be fair.
Long range goal, doesn't he? Norwood. He
Yeah,
likes to.
loves it.
Yeah.
So I think they're both sensible options to bring in. I doubt we'll bring in both of them, but one of them will be a useful addition. And then just looking at left wing back, we're constantly linked with Callum Styles. Um, I think he'd be worth bringing in. I think his value is a bit more than what we could have paid for him a year ago or 2 years ago,
Yeah. Disappointing.
which is frustrating, but it's a very Watford thing to do. So the likelihood of us getting him in for a sensible fee is unlikely. And just another name on the list, Harrison Burrows from Peterborough. Lots of Championship teams are interested in him.
Yeah.
With the Peterborough missing out on getting promoted back to the Championship this season, he is quality. So I would be very interested to see if Watford still have the pulling power that we have had in the past in the Championship. I very much doubt that. But he would be a fantastic addition. Great on set pieces, very dynamic going forward, and I think he can cover the pitch. But I'd be looking at him to start over Sema, to be honest, in that left wing back role. I think he's defensively sound as well,
Yeah,
which would be a perfect fit for Watford and for Tom Cleverley. And I think we've got to look at the view that Tom Cleverley himself has quite a lot of pulling power. Purely because he's quite a young manager. He's got experience. He's played right at the top, worked under Alex Ferguson. He's been around a lot of teams playing in the Premier League and the Championship. So he's got pulling power of his own. Whether the club
yeah,
do and can convince players that, you're here for a project and this might take a couple of years before we get going into even contention for playoffs and promotion. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, they're all sensible options. And then finally, Musa Silla, an attacking option. I'm not sure if he can play up front, but we need somebody versatile to be able to play either up front or in an attacking midfield option. 24 years old, and he scored 15 goals last season and got 7 assists in League Two for Caen. So we can see potentially if that comes through for Watford. He's linked with a couple of other clubs in England as well. Whether he can actually do the business, as we've seen, Reece Healey struggled a little bit coming back from a lot of goals in League Two with Toulouse, but
yeah.
I don't know if the jump up in quality is a little bit too high for these players to come in and produce those kind of statistics immediately. Any thoughts on any of those players who've been linked with so far, and just sort of players we like to see play for Watford?
No, I mean, I like I like a lot of the names on there. Personally, I wouldn't be going out to sign this Ricardo Velio guy. Um, just just my own personal preference
Mm,
because I'm struggling to see what the value to the club would be in getting him in
mm,
when we need to strengthen or spend money in other areas. I like all the other names though. I think some of those are brilliant. I would love to get Harrison Burrows in. I worry because of how good Peterborough United are at negotiating fees.
yeah,
I worry that they're going to bump that price up a bit more. But one of Callum Styles, Harrison Burrows would be a wonderful signing for me personally. Um, I do wonder though, and I know this has been spoken about. I think from Tom Cleverley himself. I think it's going to be a summer of loan deals. I think there's going to be a lot of players coming in
yeah.
on temporary deals because I think Tom Cleverley is going to try and get up to the Premier League and try and find some gems in there. Which again, I'm not against. So I like those names. I think we need to be smart now with who we go and sign and the markets that we get into, just where the club is nowadays, unfortunately.
Mm,
Um, but no, yeah, mate, I like it. I like what we've discussed. I think it's been good.
yeah. And I think if anyone from Watford is watching this, the squad is very thin. So we need
Yeah,
some signings. Um,
I've just been totting it up, mate. I think of the squad that we've spoken through, we're only definitely definitely wanting to keep 14,
wow, we can't even field a
14 of the
bench.
entire. Yeah,
So
at the moment.
that's an issue. And we've always
Yeah,
said that this sort of insistence on a small squad last season would come back to bite us, and I think it potentially is doing so
yeah,
now. Um,
it's at the moment, isn't it?
but yeah, it's just a few signings and a promising pre-season, and we'll be looking forward to the 2024-25 season. I think
I
potentially
think so.
finishing a little bit better than 15th. We're not going to go for any predictions yet. That will
Oh
be
no,
the podcast for the season preview, which I'm already excited for. But that will come into your ears in August at some point. We're going to have a little break for a couple of months just
hmm
before we hit the ground running again for next season. And James, we are going to be starting something next season potentially if the EFL get their acts together before the start of next season. So I'll let you
Yes.
explain it.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, so I'm sure those listening will have seen it as well. But there is going to be an EFL Fantasy League, apparently, right, sort of sponsored and backed by the EFL itself. Because I know there are a couple that already exist, but an EFL Fantasy League is being started, and we asked you, the listeners, to let us know if there'd be interest in the Yellow Squared Pod having its own league that people sign up to. So there was an overwhelming yes. So from next season, we're going to be running a Yellow Squared Pod fantasy Premier League, fantasy EFL league,
Mm.
um, uh, that everybody can join into. And I think, mate, we haven't yet decided, but we're going to have an individual team. So I'll have a team, you'll have a
Yeah,
team, but then I think there will also be a Yellow Squared Pod team
I
that
think
we'll
we'll have to
also
do
do
that.
as
Yeah.
part of the season
Stay
preview. We'll
tuned
pick a team and
for
see how that goes.
yeah, but stay tuned for more information on that because we might have a little surprise for who comes victorious come the end of the season. So if
Yeah,
you'd love to get involved with that, please do let us know. And we'll hopefully be starting that from week 1 next season. So that should be a lot of fun. We're definitely going to be switching up the podcast, turning it into more of a show as far as next season goes. But we're very excited for that. Guess the player will return, so for the avid listeners who tune in every week to play along with us, that will be making its return. So don't fret. That will just be another section of the show next year. But yeah, very excited. Lots of business for Watford to do this season, isn't there, James?
lots of business. Going to be a big summer. I suspect there's going to be a hell of a lot of churn again.
Mm.
But I'm really looking forward to seeing how Tom Covey does. I like what's been said so far. I like the messaging that's coming out. I like that they're going with a system and they're going to sign players to fit that system. I just hope that Clevs gets the players he wants,
Mm.
and is supportive with it. Because
Absolutely.
it would be a shame for all of the hard work that he's done to get the job to be put to waste because we couldn't sign the players that we wanted to.
Yes, absolutely. But I think we'll end things off now then for the 2023-24 season on the podcast. Thank you so much for all of your support this season. It's been an absolute pleasure to sit down and record. We've had some great bits this season,
Mm.
featuring James from the Watford Way appearing on Voices of the Vic podcast. Of course, having Jay Demerit on the pod as well. It's been a fantastic year for us. Not a great year for Watford, but that hasn't bothered me in the slightest. It's been so much fun to get on every week and record for you guys. All the interaction has been absolutely amazing as well. So thank you all so much for supporting the podcast this season. And yeah, we'll see you again in the summer. Come on, yours.
Absolutely. Cheers, guys. Have a good summer.
Bye bye.